What happens when a powerful icon is edited out of history? Where do you go to remember when nothing but a few photographs of him remain? This film is about the search for a voice. The voice of a man many viewed as a father of Pan-Africanism. His name is Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe. His words are rarely captured for posterity. His voice deliberately silenced. Even now, we are shielded from his thoughts and bold philosophy. Today, no film footage or recording of his voice exists.
Robert Sobukwe was sentenced on the 4th of May 1960 to 3 years hard labor. "Your worship," he said from the dock, "we believe in one race only, the human race, to which we all belong. The history of that race is a long struggle, and we would have betrayed the human race if we had not done our share. We stand for equal rights for all individuals and are not afraid of the consequences." Sobukwe, having served his 3-year sentence, now due for release, the apartheid government so feared his influence they implemented their Sobukwe clause. This clause enabled them to detain Sobukwe indefinitely. On the 23rd of April 1963, Sobukwe was secretly flown to Robben Island, where he was incarcerated in isolation. The state then extended this incarceration a year at a time up until 1969.
No other political prisoner in South Africa has ever been the subject of a special statute, except for Mangaliso Sobukwe. The Sobukwe clause was to ensure that he remained on Robben Island prison indefinitely. From 1963, having already served 3 years hard labor, he was detained for a further 6 years without trial. He was kept in solitary confinement with no human contact. On his eventual release, he was banished and placed under house arrest.
That as far as the government of South Africa is concerned, as far as my colleague, the Minister of Police, is concerned, as far as the Commissioner of Police and the South African Police Force is concerned, the breakdown of law and order in South Africa will not be tolerated under any circumstances whatsoever.
He was never anti-white. He was anti-white domination. He was opposed to our being dominated by whites.
To quote a Minister of Justice at the time who said that the man was like a prophet. He was able to move people to do whatever he wanted them to do. And that's what they were scared of. They were scared about. His power over people, his ability to talk to people, to understand people, and to lead people.
He led from the front. Monday, 21st March 1960, was a day masterminded by Sobukwe that changed the course of South African history and focused the world's attention on the brutality of the apartheid regime. From then on, nothing would ever be the same. Sobukwe's incredible ability to touch the hearts and minds of the oppressed and give voice to their suffering saw him mobilize thousands of South Africans who were prepared to lay down their lives for the cause under his leadership.
The way he enunciated our political struggle was in a way that, no other leader had done before him. And the impact of that, especially to me, was so great that I really admired the man. I admired him then and now.
Sobukwe's vision was the dismemberment of the apartheid dream, replacing it with African emancipation and dignity. Sobukwe broke away from the dominant political movements of the day to found the defiantly Pan-Africanist Congress. For generations to follow, his ideas found expression through successive waves of resistance that would bring the regime to its knees. Nkrumah, Nehru, and Nyerere, all Sobukwe's contemporaries, acknowledged his contribution to the development of Pan-African thought on the continent. Yet, Mangaliso Robert Sobukwe's name does not appear on the roll call of world leaders. Still, there are more questions than answers. Sobukwe's death, allegedly from cancer, remains an event shrouded in mystery. Was he slow poisoned? Why were several surgical operations performed on him in secret? Those who truly understood Sobukwe knew him as a deep...
For 5 centuries, Mozambique has been under the yoke of Portuguese power. In the 50s, factions arise wanting to bring about political and social reforms. But the secret police, PIDA, know how to prevent this. In 1960, more than 600 Mozambicans are killed during a peaceful protest demonstration. As a consequence, the different resistance movements close ranks to form one liberation movement, Frelimo.
Was born the son of a peasant farmer on September 29, 1933, in Gaza province of southern Mozambique. At the age of 31, he was one of 250 freedom fighters who launched an armed struggle against the Portuguese colonial regime. For more than 10 years, he commanded the revolutionary forces of Frelimo, the Front for the Liberation of Mozambique. With Frelimo's victory in 1975, he became his country's first president. There are some who feel a certain pride because they were colonized by the English. The English are civilized and had built a great empire.
E outros foram colonizados pelos franceses e pensam que intelectualmente são mais desenvolvidos, mais civilizados, mais evoluídos, porque foram colonizados pelos franceses.
There are others who think because they were colonized by the French, they are more intellectually developed, more civilized, more evolved, because they were colonized by the French.
Eu fui colonizado pelos portugueses.
I was colonized by the Portuguese.
País mais subdesenvolvido da Europa.
The most backward country in Europe, but still colonialist. This question is very interesting. It is Western, the Western point of view. They think that in Mozambique, we've had natural disasters and other things because we've moved ahead too quickly. Those who cannot read or write accept this theory. I'd like to answer that question. No. It was neither too soon nor too late. We acted at the opportune time. With force and firm conviction, we decided what our revolution would be. We took back the land soon after declaring independence. You think that was too quick? Taking back the land? It was held for 500 years in the hands of a few. 500 years. We took it back after 10 years of war. We were victorious, and we said, we will now give the land back to the people. Was that too quick? We nationalized schools and hospitals that were serving a minority. They were instruments of privilege. Do you think that was too soon?
We see a completely non-racial society. We don't believe, for instance, in the so-called guarantees for minority rights, because guaranteeing minority rights implies the recognition of portions of the community on a race basis. We believe that in our country there shall be no minority, there shall be no majority, there shall just be people. And those people will have the same status before the law, and they will have the same political rights before the law. So in a sense, it will be a completely non-racial egalitarian society.
But will the vast number of blacks, after all their experiences, be able to live a life without giving vent to feelings of revenge, of
yes, we believe it is the duty of the vanguard political movement which brings about change to educate people's outlooks. I mean, in the same way that blacks have never lived in a socialist economic system, they've got to learn to live in one. In the same way that they've always lived in a racially divided society, they've got to learn to live in a non-racial society. They've got many things to learn, and all this must be brought to them and explained to the people by the vanguard movement, which is leading the revolution. A totality of effect of a number of change agencies operating in South Africa. I personally would like to see less groups. I'd like to see groups like ANC, PAC, and the Black Consciousness Movement deciding to form one liberation group. And it is only, I think, when black people are so dedicated and so united in their cause that we can effect the greatest results. And whether this is going to be through the form of conflict or not will be dictated by the future. I don't believe for a moment that we are going to willingly drop our belief in the non-violence stance as of now. But I can't predict what will happen in the future, in as much as I can predict what the enemy is going to do in the future.
Can you guess at all at the number of years the change might take?
That's a very difficult exercise. I don't want to get involved in that kind of exercise. Some people say 5 years, others say 10 years. I think we are not at a stage yet where it is possible to fix a precise timetable.
When you speak of an egalitarian society, do you mean a socialist one?
Yes, I think there is no running away from the fact now that in South Africa there is such an ill distribution of wealth that any form of political freedom which does not touch on the distribution of, proper distribution of wealth will be meaningless. The whites have locked up within a small minority of themselves the greater proportion of the country's wealth. And if we have a mere change of face of those in governing positions, what is likely to happen is that black people will continue to be poor, and you will get a few blacks filtering through into the so-called bourgeoisie, and our society will be run almost as of yesterday. So that for meaningful change to occur, there needs to be an attempt at reorganizing the whole economic pattern and economic policies within this particular country. PPC believes in a judicious blending of private enterprise, which is highly diminished, and state participation in industry and commerce, especially on industries like mining, gold, diamond, asbestos, and so on, like forestry, and of course complete ownership of land. Now, in that kind of judicious blending of the two systems, we hope to arrive at a more equitable distribution of wealth.
Yeah, but you see a country, so clearly you see a country in which black and white can live amicably on equal terms together.
That is correct. We see a completely non-racial society. We don't believe, for instance, in the so-called guarantees for minority rights, because guaranteeing minority rights implies the recognition of portions of the community on a race basis. We believe that in our country there shall be no minority, there shall be no majority, there shall just be people.
What kind of society do you want to see established in Zimbabwe after independence? I would like to see a society based on the principle of non-racialism. In other words, the present system whereby land is divided according to race, the economy is worked according to race, society as a whole is established on the principle of racial blocks. This I would like to see go.
Do you want to see a fully socialist or socialized society?
Oh yes, surely. We are dedicated to socialism. This we have said. This every African delegation here has said, and we hope we will have a socialist state.
Would the blacks, for instance, go on owning small farms and businesses?
Well, one has got to allow here for a measure of adaptation of socialist principles. You cannot start off by taking control of everything, of any individual enterprise. You go to make some allowance for a start for some form of enterprise.
Looking ahead, do you believe that Rhodesian majority rule involves free elections at some point?
Yes, of course, why not? We are fighting for democracy. We would like to see a democratic state established in Zimbabwe. And this means a state based on the wishes of the majority of the people. The best way in which people can demonstrate their participation in democracy is by voting, and elections are quite a necessity.
Do you suppose that Ian Smith and the whites represented at this conference are going to accept black control of the army and the police during the interim stage?
If they accept the fact of the transfer of power, I don't see why they shouldn't accept the fact that this power must be as effective as any power can be in any state, and this effectiveness can only come from the fact of control by our forces.
But do you believe that the whites in Rhodesia will accept that?
Whether they will accept it or not is immaterial to us, really. They have to accept it in as much as they must accept political domination.
But surely it is material to you in the sense that if they don't accept it, this conference breaks down.
Well, if it breaks down, it will have been because they are not prepared to transfer power fully to us. We want a total transfer of power.
What role do you see for yourself in the future Zimbabwe?
Well, for myself, I see a role assigned to me by my people, by my party first and foremost. Whatever my party asks me to do, I shall do.
Will you, as someone who's not had direct military experience, who's not a fighter, be in a strong position to lead and to direct a victorious guerrilla movement?
Why not? Our guerrilla movement is not divorced from the generality of the people. I have mentioned already that the guerrillas are part of the body of our population in Zimbabwe. The people who are fighting the war are, on the one part, trained people, on the other, untrained people. They all constitute the Zimbabwean army in a broad sense of the word. Some are feeding the guerrillas, some are showing them the way, some are raising foodstuffs and clothing for them. All these people are engaged in the struggle. They all matter to us.
I asked him what it was that the African really wanted.
The Africans want the franchise on the basis of one man, one vote. They want political independence.
Do you see Africans being able to develop in this country without the European being pushed out?
We have made it very clear in our policy that South Africa is a country of many races. There is room for all the various races in this country.
Are there many educated Africans in South Africa?
Yes. We have a large number of Africans who are educated and who are taking part in the political struggles of the African. The question of education has nothing to do with the question of the vote. The on numerous occasions, it has been proved in history that people can enjoy the vote even if they have no education. Of course, we desire education, and we think it's a good thing. But you don't have to have education in order to know that you want certain fundamental rights, you have got aspirations, you have got claims. It has nothing to do with education whatsoever.
Are you planning any more campaigns of non-cooperation?
Yes. The Pietermaritzburg resolution makes provision for a campaign of non-cooperation with the government, and we are presently studying plans to implement this aspect of the resolution.
Now, if Dr. Verwoerd's government doesn't give you the kind of concessions that you want sometime soon, is there any likelihood of violence?
There are many people who feel that the reaction of the government to our stay at home, ordering a general mobilization, arming the white community, arresting 10,000s of Africans, the show of force throughout the country, notwithstanding our clear declaration that this campaign is being run on peaceful and non-violent lines, close the chapter as far as our methods of political struggle are concerned. There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people. And I think the time has come for us to consider, in the light of our experiences in this stay at home, whether the methods which we have applied so far are adequate.
And leader of the most powerful of the tribal parties. Using an obscure law, President Kasavubu removed Lumumba and many of his ministers from office. Lumumba, in turn, called on Parliament, which removed Kasavubu. Lumumba and Kasavubu found themselves at a stalemate. Several attempts were made at reconciliation, but Kasavubu refused. In this power vacuum, Colonel Mobutu, senior commander of the Force Publique in Leopoldville, seized control and placed Lumumba under house arrest. Hoping to regain power, Lumumba attempted to flee to his center of support in Stanleyville, but was captured by Mobutu's soldiers. The Belgian government arranged for Lumumba to be flown to Elizabethville, the stronghold of Tshombe's secessionist forces, ensuring his death. On January 17th, he arrived, bound, badly beaten, and missing his glasses. Now, in front of cameras, he was beaten again and forced to eat a transcript of his Independence Day speech. He was never seen nor heard from again. For 4 weeks, no news of Lumumba came out of Katanga. Finally, on February 13th, Tshombe issued an obviously false statement concerning Lumumba's death. The world reacted in shock and outrage. Although the Western governments saw Lumumba as a communist, to the people of the world he was, and still is, seen as a nationalist, a hero, and after February 13th, a martyr. It is widely believed he had been killed on the evening of his arrival in Elizabethville by a firing squad commanded by Belgian officers. His body was never recovered. The remains were hacked into pieces, dissolved in acid, and burned. Without Lumumba, the Congo lapsed into a deadly civil war. Ultimately, power passed into the hands of the bloody dictator Colonel Joseph Mobutu, who ruled by fear and violence. While Lumumba's errors played a large role in the collapse of the Congo, they were minor when compared to the actions of Belgium and the inactions of the United Nations. Lumumba played a vital role in securing Congolese independence. He was still the single strongest force of unity in the Congo. He was crucial in uniting the Congolese people enough to force the Belgians to the bargaining table at Brussels in 1960, and his leadership carried the Congo through the Force Publique. That concluded, Africa will write its own history, and to the north and south of the Sahara, it will be a glorious and dignified history. I know that my country, which is suffering so much, will know how to defend its independence and its liberty. Long live the Congo, long live Africa.
I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Lutuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa. But not only that, but to the people of Africa.
The forces arrayed against us are, and I use the word most carefully, formidable. They are intense and powerful. They are, as I have taken some pains to explain, the forces of imperialism acting through their instruments, neo-colonialism and colonialism, ably assisted by the agents of the Cold War. They operate in worldwide combinations at all levels: political, economic, military, cultural, educational, social, and trade. And not all, and through intelligence, cultural, and information services. They operate from European and African centers, using agents who, I'm ashamed to say, are often unpatriotic sons of Africa, buying personal satisfactions with the betrayal of their country's safety and integrity. They seduce leaders. They seduce leaders of the African political, trade union, and people's organization, thus creating rifts and quarrels within the national front. On the broader front, they are massing their forces in a determined effort to stay the advance of African liberation and the march of unity. It is not accidental that the countries of the European Common Market and those spearheading the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the imperialist powers who have brought in their vassals, Spain and Portugal. Portugal, in fact, since the wars of the Spanish Succession, 1700 to 1714, being a protectorate of Britain, which has enjoyed special trading and unnecessary rights in both Portugal and in the Portuguese territories for over 200 years. It is not difficult to understand, therefore, why Britain has not raised her voice against the atrocities in Angola and other protected Portuguese territories, and actually supported Portugal's preposterous claim at Goa in India, was an integral part of the metropolitan country. The arms and troops that are pouring into Angola cannot be regarded in isolation from the international organization of imperialism and the Cold War militarism, with which they are most definitely linked. It is absurd to think that Portugal, one of the poorest countries in Europe, could support so large an army, so well equipped, as that which he defended her colonial possession in Africa, without the active aid he must be receiving from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Nor can we look upon the way in which South Africa is busily building up an armed force equal to any held by the nations of Europe, without sending the international implications that are obviously involved. She has, we hear, a secret military pact with Portugal, and the interlocking imperialist interests collected in the Congo and the Rhodesias, Angola and Mozambique,
which are also linked with the great mining and financial interests operating in South Africa, create a chain of allies which seriously threatens both the fight for extending African emancipation from colonialism and independence of the new African states.
Produit suffisamment de quoi nous nourrir. Nous pouvons dépasser même notre production, malheureusement. Par manque d'organisation, nous sommes encore obligés de tendre la main pour demander des aides alimentaires. Ces aides alimentaires qui nous bloquent, qui nous inspirent, qui installent dans nos esprits cette habitude, ces réflexes de mendiants, d'assister.
Upper Volta, 1983. Thomas Sankara is brought to power by a coup supported by one of the poorest peoples on our planet. Behind a military uniform and a Marxist discourse, Africa discovers a young and dynamic leader, ready to put his innovative ideas at the service of his fellow citizens. Thomas Sankara gives a new name to his country, Burkina Faso, which means the land of upright men.
Il y en a qui demandent mais où se trouve l'impérialisme. L'impérialisme, regardez dans vos assiettes, quand vous mangez les grains de riz, de maïs, de mil importés, c'est ça l'impérialisme, n'allez pas plus loin.
Little by little, Sankara takes his country out of misery, achieves food self-sufficiency, but clashes with the French who want to keep control over their former colonies. Above all, they want to avoid by all means that Sankara's ideas spread throughout the region.
La France ne comprend pas l'Afrique. Et il est grand temps qu'elle la comprenne. Qui ici ne souhaite pas que la dette soit purement simplement effacée? Celui qui ne le souhaite pas, il peut sortir, prendre son avion et aller tout de suite à la Banque mondiale, payer. Tous nous souhaitons.
Thomas Sankara is attacked by those in the north as well as in the south who benefit from Africa's underdevelopment. His closest collaborator, Blaise Compaoré, with the support of foreign powers, will betray him. Killed for his ideas, Thomas Sankara has become the African Che in the eyes of African youth today.
Pour le grand combat patriotique, pour l'avenir radieux de notre pays, la patrie ou la mort, nous vaincrons.
When we established ourselves in Lesotho and were able to set up the underground and military units inside the country and began to operate, South Africa became nervous. They decided to eliminate me in 1981 by sending an agent to plant a bomb under my car. That attempt was abortive. Then they made two other attempts to get me killed. In 81, 82 or 81, I'm not sure, they sent units of the SADF to go and kill as many of our people inside the city, including refugees. Because their intelligence was faulty, they thought that I was in the country They tried to attack the flat where I used to stay. But just a flat away from my own, they attacked, convinced that I was in that flat, and killed the locals. So this was a matter of desperation. It was not only in Lesotho. They went across Mozambique and killed refugees, and a few of our comrades, they went into Botswana. They were crazy. They had decided that they were going to take off their gloves and that they were going to kill anybody who harbored us, who was unfortunate to stay next to us, whether it was a Mosotho, a Motswana, a Zimbabwean. That was the nature of the frenzy existing in Pretoria. It makes me actually realize, you see, with impatience, the need to defeat, this regime. And I don't mince my words when I'm speaking about this regime. I hate it intensely. I hate it. Every time I stand on a platform, I'm reminded of these gruesome atrocities. I'm even reminded of my own children. If they had succeeded, they would have killed. My children were, at that time, one of them was 2 years old, another one 10 years, a baby. And I saw it as basically an inhuman regime, a cruel regime. People who were fighting for a right to oppress the majority of the people of this country. And I disagree with a lot of people who think that de Klerk and others have changed. Because de Klerk and others have done nothing about removing the forces that they created. It's not just Hammer, Van der Vestes, and Gert, Hugo, or whatever his name. It is those people who strategized and worked out the strategies and tactics of destroying us. De Klerk, Rolf Meyer, Adrian Flock, Magnus Malan, Big Potter, who were in the center of the strategy of killing people, in the State Security Council. And therefore, that's why some of us have got reservation about the amnesty they are talking about. Before you consider an amnesty, let us see what they did. When we were coming back, they forced us to fill forms to say, what did we do? And I think that should apply to them as well.
Okay.